I can do it. Hi, everybody. I'm Julia Oswald-Tilton. I'm a first-year MFA student here at the University of Minnesota. And thank you for being here. Some of you I recognize, some of you I don't. So if you're here for the first time, thank you for being here and supporting our program and hearing our students read. We have 4 different readers for you tonight in a variety of genres. So we're going to start off with Natalie. Natalie Dahlia is a Midwestern mestiza writer. She has published with The Offing, Pigeonholes, Between Cities, and forthcoming with Passages North. Although I think that's already been published in Passages North. Still forthcoming. The world is slow, people. All right. Natalie feels like she can't comfortably make me say she is the coolest person in the world, but rest assured. Everything bad that happens to her still makes her more sexy and mysterious. Let's welcome Natalie. Continuing the tradition of never printing out what I'm going to read, and so I bring it with my whole laptop where you get to see all my stickers where I rep all of my clubs. Sorry, now I'm fidgeting to try to make sure I'm actually in the mic. Okay. So one of the things, so I'm a creative nonfiction writer, and you know the thing about being a creative nonfiction writer who is a memoirist is you have to get really cool with people learning things about you really quickly. So today I'm going to read you this piece about me having a pregnancy scare. And this is like the middle of a really long monster essay, and to just give a little preface, the present tense in this essay is a Natalie from 2020. The past tense Natalie in the essay is probably from like the year before. Just so when the tense changes, you know what's happening with that. Basic premise, because I'm starting in the middle, is we're in Chicago. I'm in this bad relationship. That's it. I knew my sister was pregnant the second she texted me. It was the middle of the night, and I was at her parents' house, enjoying the silent solitude night brought. I was applying for jobs in Columbus and Chicago, too chicken to take the full leap, too ambitious to refuse the siren call of the second city. Earlier that week, I visited Ariel and her boyfriend Matt at church. They said sure I could come, but then they didn't talk to me. I thought I'd done something wrong. They were so quiet. It was only that weekend that Ariel texted me to ask if I was alone, if our parents were around, if she could call me. I knew what the news would be the second she asked. My sister had a stomach of steel, but she had fainted in the cadaver lab that same week, bruising her tailbone. I, having read enough books about surprise pregnancies and the fraught decisions they wreak, knew immediately how to recognize foreshadowing. I knew immediately why she would not want her parents in earshot. I knew immediately she would keep this baby. The next time I went to Columbus for a job fair, I stayed with Ariel and Matt for hours after, lying to my parents, telling them I was hanging out with friends. I drove the 2-hour car ride past dark, the entire ride on the phone processing the news with my ex, who was not my ex at the time. He and I were friends. We'd been friends for a year. I teased him into signing up for an early U.S. literature class with me, where we sat in the back and picked esoteric fights with the white kids. We both ended up in Chicago because that's what striving kids in Ohio do. So this is the cool, cute little thing you do in an essay where you do a blank space, and that's a time jump. So we've time jumped to the relative present. On my ex's bed, I pull out my iPhone, #not sponsored. According to my period tracking app, I'm probably within my fertile window. According to the sex ed websites I hastily skim, even if it isn't full penetrative sex, if semen has come in contact with a vulva, impregnation is possible. According to my cousin Larissa, women in my family are exceedingly fertile. She's undergoing IVF, and she constantly brags about her doctor telling her she has the uterus of a 23-year-old. I'm 23 years old at this time. Seems like I'm in my prime. I'm speed Googling pharmacies. I say, Plan B is going to be like $40. I estimate this because I bought it for my friend back in Columbus from the Kroger pharmacy back home when she was too scared to do it herself after a former boyfriend's condom slipped. This is a secret I have kept until now, with all of you listening to this, and now forever it being in the world. This is also why I knew the Costco-sized box of condoms was no real peace of mind. At the sound of the price, my ex's eyebrows shoot into his hairline. That expensive? He replies. Cheaper than having a baby, I say. There are a few things I know about Plan B. 1, it is more effective the sooner you take it. 2, it's less effective on women over 150 pounds. At this point of the pandemic, I'm at least 190. 3, it works by delaying ovulation. If I'm within my fertile window, who knows if there's anything to delay anymore. My ex drives me to CVS. He waits in the car. It doesn't make sense for both of us to go in, he reasons, with the pandemic. I go in by myself. I decide not to feel anything about this. When I bought Plan B for my friend, they kept it in a locked box by the pharmacist counter. I asked the pharmacist if she could help us out, my friend trailing close to my elbow. The pharmacist asked if we wanted Plan B or the generic brand. The generic is the same active ingredients, right? I asked out loud, for my friend's benefit more than mine. It's the same, it's just cheaper. So we went with that. The pharmacist handed it over and we went to the check lane. The teenage boy cashing us out wasn't paying attention. He was having fun with his job, so he started flipping the box in the air as he swiped it over the barcode scanner. When the box rattled, he looked at the label, and upon reading it, he hastily shoved the box in the tan plastic bag. I wanted to tell him it was fine. It wasn't like he was gonna break this pill and its blister-packed seal, but he was too embarrassed to make eye contact with us after that.
Agreed.
In Chicago, I wait behind 15 people in the pharmacy line, shuffling forward on gleaming white tile floors, my ribbed black tank top no protection against the blasting air conditioning. I'm not wearing a bra, and I pull my shirt down in the back, tugging it higher at my neck, uncertain if this is gonna just draw more attention to myself, grateful for my mask that gives me a semblance of anonymity. Anonymity, that's a word. When I reach the pharmacist's counter, I ask for Plan B, and the pharmacist retreats to a tall shelf against the far wall behind him, reaches to the top, and hands over the expensive, name-brand, Chicago price-adjusted box for $65. I pay for it at the counter and dry swallow the pill in the parking lot. My ex Venmos me half the money, signing off the message with the emoji of a ram, Ovus Dali, an animal he'd written about in homage to his grandpa. And I'm actually skipping the rest of this paragraph because it's too identifying of this man. When I bought Plan B for my sister, her boyfriend at the time Venmo'd me the full amount, plus an extra $5, signing the message, "A Lannister always pays his debts." I have also realized that I didn't change the fact that it was my sister I was buying this for and not a friend, so whoops, that's an accident there. But I made her eat an applesauce pouch to have something in her stomach other than worry. In my ex's apartment, I eat a leftover pan dulce for the same reason. With this morning's action accomplished, my ex sits on his bed, overtop his gray flannel sheets. He pulls out his computer to work on his thesis. I sit next to him, press against his shoulder. I want him to say something to me. Something simple, like it's gonna be fine. Even a derisive, the odds of anything happening are so low, this is a big fuss for nothing. I want him to acknowledge anything that happened this morning. Instead, I receive silence. I ask, can I be scared with you for a moment? He allows me to lean on his shoulder. After a minute, he nudges me off. I know you're worried, he says, but I have a thesis to work on. Is it okay if I drive you home? My cousin Larissa is not home, thank goodness, out visiting her partner in LA for the 4th of July, so I don't have any witness to my fear, no one to explain myself to, no need to hide in the stairwell to cry. I collapse in a crumpled pile on her black and white rug, the fibers scratchy and coarse against my cheek and fingers. Unbidden, I sob. My chest caves in with the pressure. I dissolve into endless messy tears, keening, leaking. My stomach roils, and I don't know if it's disappointment, fear, or the medication doing its job. I look up if there's anything else I can do. Once sperm is in a woman's body, the web articles read, it can stay there for 4 days. Even the feminist ones, which cut through the bullshit, say the same thing. Once sperm touches moisture, it swims up the vagina into the uterus. Once it passes the cervix, there's nothing you can do to stop it. There's no way to scoop it out. Doing so puts you at risk of infection. But I still want to try. I want to dig into myself, carve myself up. I inspect myself in a mirror, even though I know I won't see anything. I put on a skirt and imagine I can dry myself out, and I wonder how many women have thought the same things, what superstitions they've concocted, what worse they've done out of fear. I can't stay in this empty apartment. I pull on leggings and a sports bra, tight clothes to constrict myself, to pull my belly tight, to keep myself contained. I punch the elevator button and exit to the hot road, race full tilt down the sidewalk, feet pounding past the humid restaurant dumpsters, over smeared streaks of dog poop, beyond the caged college prep high school. As far as my heart allows, it's pounding to proceed. I make it to an elementary school at the end of the street, its small playground and grassy lawn sheltered amidst a copse of townhomes. I collapse in the dusty knotweed, panting. The sky recedes from me. Kids race around the yard, playing baseball and tag, two activities that seem relatively safe in the early mid-pandemonium days. I pray as I look up through tree branches, blue peeking through oblong green leaves. I pray I won't be able to love it. The neighborhood kids scatter so haphazardly that laying on the grass makes me easy tramplings. I retreat to a bench and watch them run, happy scream, tumble over, pick themselves up. I won't be able to love it. Please don't make me pregnant. Take it away. Save me from this, God. Strike me barren. I instantly suffocate under the only fear greater than my fear of pregnancy, the other fear I've inherited from my mom, my fear of demons. This is exactly the kind of thought they'd latch onto. I didn't mean it. I start to pray more frantically. Not literally. I don't want that. I want my body to work normally. Except if I think about a life without a career and a life without a pregnancy, I know which one I want more. Except if I think of a hypothetical, happily married Natalie, I know her too, and I know she will consider kids. I know if she has any problems conceiving, she will look back at this moment and hate me. Except that Natalie isn't real. And I would like to say as the current Natalie that this Natalie was afraid of, that Natalie is not going to be real. The real Natalie sits on a metal bench watching little kids play and feels nothing other than cold, hard dread. I feel stupidly guilty. My ex spent all this money on a bulk box of condoms to have safe sex, which I forgot maybe to mention is the way this essay starts, is he bought a bulk box of condoms, and I'm pretty sure I'm never gonna have sex again. It's stupid because it wasn't my fault that he'd made this purchase before even broaching the conversation, deciding himself on the assumption of my consent. I'm not obligated to let him fuck me just because he promised he'd wear a condom while doing it. Once sperm is in a woman's body, it can stay there for 4 days, the web articles read. Once sperm touches moisture, it swims up the vagina into the uterus. Once it passes the cervix, there's nothing you can do to stop it. There's no way to scoop it out. Doing so puts you at risk of infection. The thing about a pregnancy scare is it lasts a month. It lasts from the moment of fear until the relief of blood. I have 3 more weeks until my next period. All I can do is wait and hope I'm being paranoid. I go over to my ex's place the next night to not be alone. I stay up the whole night in the bathroom, sitting on the cold tile floor, back against the door, hands pressed to my abdomen, trying to judge if the twinges beneath my fingers are ovulation cramps or my imagination. I'm going to, before I close, just read something I wrote in my journal last year in November. What I think is, I don't know, it was just interesting to me, and this is my reading, so I get to do it. Judith Herman writes about the need to share trauma in her foundational book, Trauma and Recovery. If I had the book with me right now, I would tell you what it says, word for word, a proper quotation. I don't have it, so I'm just going to paraphrase from memory. There's a stage in recovery where you need to share because you need to know others will love you. More than wanting to know if what you experienced was real, you want others to believe you because you want to know you are one of them. Sharing trauma, disclosing, is an act of connection. It's a way to ask for love, and it's a way to receive it. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Our next reader is going to be Sarah. Yay. Sarah Sicardi is a writer, essayist, and occasional critic from Southern California. They've received fellowships and support from Kundiman, Tin House, Lambda Literary, and the National Book Critics Circle. Formerly trained as a scientist, they also have degrees in biomedical engineering and computer science. They are an MFA candidate at the University of Minnesota. Please welcome Sarah.
Hi everyone, and thank you Natalie for that lovely reading. I am going to be reading sorry, can you hear me well?
Yeah.
All right, great. I am going to be reading a self-contained flash piece, and it is a work of fiction that is entitled Yielding. So here we are. I was 12 when Mommy and I ran away. It was morning. I remember this because of its incongruence. People were not supposed to run away in the morning, but there was no other word for what we did. Let's go on a vacation, Julia, Mommy had said. Just you and me. We just left church. The wine was still hot and sour in my mouth, my hands salted with rust from the metal doors. When? I asked. I was wearing an itchy wool cardigan that I had been waiting with barely contained patience to take off at home. We have to go now, she said. But it will be so much fun, an adventure. Can we get burgers? I said. Yes, Mommy said. French fries? Anything you want. It was too much. Still, I forced myself not to ask for more. Sometimes at night, I heard Mommy and Papi arguing about him hoarding all his money, their voices seeping through the seam beneath my door. I did not want to know more of what they were saying, so I closed my ears. And when my little brother, Andrew, came into my room, I closed his ears for him, even if it meant I would have to hear. We would leave them both, Andrew and Papi, at home. I realized I did not want my brother to come. In me, hot and sour, the wretched thrill of having been chosen. Mommy was watching me with those dark, careful eyes, and I knew she would not ask again. Okay, I said. Let's go. Good girl, Mommy said. She reached out to touch my shoulder, and I did not pull away. We drove north. I knew this because Mommy told me I had to help her. I had to look for the big N on the green sign, the exits with numbers which grew larger and larger. When I found it, and we entered the freeway, Mommy told me she loved me. I smiled. She had not yet told me where we were going, but I imagined a motel room awaiting us, a single queen bed, her hot breath misting my hand as she slept. It was winter, though in California it could have been any season. Green yielded to green, concrete to concrete on the freeway, paintings of flowers were arranged into careful grids. Mommy's hands were wreathed around the wheel. On the freeway, she drove so fast, the way Papi did when he was angry. Though I knew she was not, she did not become angry, she only grew more focused, more quiet. I knew every one of her half gestures. I watched everything, though she did not watch me. When the road thinned into 2 lanes and the diner's neon light appeared, Mommy pulled into the lot and we went inside. When she opened her menu, I did the same, though I was not hungry anymore. I wanted to keep moving. I wanted to go as fast as we could. In the diner, I was scared to ask for anything, but she was watching me. So I ordered the burger I said I wanted, the smallest one with just a patty, ketchup, and an enriched white bun to make her happy. Aren't you going to get something? I said. I'm not hungry. She touched my cheek with the back of her hand. She rarely touched me. She was never home. I forced myself to be still. When the burger came, wrapped in wax paper and dripping grease, I ate it as fast as I could so I wouldn't have to wait, so when Papi found our car missing from the driveway, we would be too far away to find. But she kept ordering more things for me. A basket of fries, a raspberry cola, a lava cake that wept chocolate through a little hole. I wanted her to stop. It was too much, too wasteful. We rarely ate out. When we did, we only ordered entrees. We could not afford this. But I ate it all even though it made my stomach hurt, and I hated chocolate. I did it because if I could stand it, if we could drive a little further, then it would be me and her inside a room. Me and the mummy who used to sing Amazing Grace to me when I was a little girl in her low, patient voice. Just me and her for a single morning, a slat of early light drifting across her cheek while she slept, and I watched her. When we finished, Mommy drained her coffee into the bushes. I ran to the car, and she followed, her purse flapping behind her like a broken wing. The sun blazed its single iron eye, then faltered, and then it was night, the road skinny and dark, the cars blinding us with their high beams when they passed us by. We pulled into a Motel 6. I opened the car door and stepped outside and ran to the reception with its happy silver bell because I wanted to see our room. But when I turned back to look for her, she wasn't there. She was sitting in the car. I went back to her. She was quiet, so I was quiet too. The only light on her face came from 3 bare bulbs strewn high above the lot, around which halos of moths burned their wings. She was trembling. When I looked at her again, I found she could not move. "What should we do, Julia?" she said. "Tell me what you want to do." It was the first time I thought she looked old. She looked so tired, so thin. In the strained light, I saw all the new moles on her skin, the ink hidden in her body finally rising to the surface. A freckle at the side of her wrist, another one buried into a fold of her neck. I never wanted to touch her. I thought I had destroyed the capability in myself. I was surprised in that moment to find desire had not left me yet. I reached out and ran my thumbs across the new mole on her hand. It was dark blue, raised, uncannily smooth. Her hands, they were so cold. So I took them and I cupped them in my own. I blew on them until they were warm, until she could move her fingers again, then her wrists, her arm, her body. I told her what she wanted to hear, even though I hated her for her weakness, for not being able to leave Papi for even a single night. I did it. "Andrew," I said, though I tried so hard to forget him too. "He's waiting for us. Let's go home." She smiled weakly. "You're such a good girl, Julia," she said, her eyes so dark and careful, the same ones she'd given me. I waited until she was ready. Finally, she pulled out of the lot and guided the car back onto the road. Outside her apartment, all the windows were black except for a single bulb upstairs. I could see my little brother's silhouette in the window. It was just him, likely brushing his teeth. Of all the things I wanted, that was all I could have. Andrew waiting for me. I opened the car door for her and walked behind her. We took off our shoes and tiptoed in. "Quiet, quiet," I whispered, and I held her hand to give her strength. But the living room was empty. Papi was asleep. He didn't even know that we'd run away. Years later, after Mommy had replaced the Corolla with a Lexus, and the rare times we found ourselves driving alone, she'd look back upon this day and laugh. "We were so silly," she would say. "But didn't we have so much fun together, Julia?" "We did," I would say, and I would laugh with her. After we left the motel, we went south, though it could have been any direction. The chocolate cake burned inside me. Concrete yielded to concrete. Black yielded to black. In the car, I slept for as long as I could. But when we approached our little city, I forced myself to wake up, because I knew she would not carry me in. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So we are going to take a little break, like 5 minutes, if you want to look around, chit-chat, and we have a couple readers after the break, so we'll come back in about 5 minutes.
Woo! I'm good. How are you? Sounds good. Have a fun browse. Can I come up? Sure.
I was just gonna go see what they have on the horror shelf.
I assumed you would. to congratulate the reader. Yeah, also, do you want to say hi to Sierra?
Yeah, no, I know. I had the same thought. So funny. Also, like, I'm not 100% sure that
and I just am like, I need to go home. So I feel like bad. Yeah.
And again, I'm like still like not totally sure what it is
I'm not going to go at all, much less going to be like that. I think Sam was like just going to go by himself. And then he told me he was like, it's 3 hours. It's more than I don't know. It was so awkward. I hate that more now. I don't know. I feel like it's in there. No, this is a great chunk. Yeah. Way to go. Yeah. One of it's exactly what was in my God. Yep. I know.
It's like going by so quickly. We have one more.
I know. Just so much more. Are we doing this next week? Are we going to do what they did and like offer it to people?
That's a good question. But it doesn't really easy to do.
Yeah. If you find someone else, yes.
I think explaining it and exchanging the contacts is literally more labor than just like,
I thought the same thing, and I was like, you want to flip flop roles, or you want to do whatever, like, you just got this, let's just, unless someone's like, I really want to do that.
yeah, I'm like, I totally might have to.
Yeah.
Because like, remember last night.
We were like the most eager.
That moment arrived.
Yeah, funny.
Really though is like so.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Water here, trying to read.
So like, you got the meeting and you're supposed to have like all of it read by then. Fair enough. Yes. And take it.
One word change.
How you feeling being nervous for reading?
I haven't done a lot of readings. I've only done a couple of readings over Zoom. So I was like, during the pandemic, so I was like, and I had, and all the shit during the pandemic was 2020, so I was like, all of the pandemic, I was like, this is basically like, you know what I mean? This Friday, or this Thursday, Ricky's doing Julie, and then I'm the next class. Yes.
It's also fun.
So I'm hyped for my good
I practiced on before that.
I'll be there with Suki and like Suki and I went to the same high school for some reason. And like so I'm like, oh yeah.
I'm like, she must be. I know she's not gonna again.
That was last Friday.
Suki is super friendly. If you ever want to like sweet. She's like amazing. She's so friendly. She's so great. Also underrated in this kind of like area. I think we're in my years really hyped about having Megan was new and Amanda was new and Suki was on sabbatical in our first year. She was back. But she's great. She's very, very good. She's very friendly. Apparently we're the go in. If you have all the spare time you have, because you never see us in Oh, yes! I would not take it. Yeah. I mean, that's even but I was like, this is like fun and engaging and not gonna like microgress, you know? Yeah.
But I think it's good. I know it's about the vibes.
Yeah, the vibes are That's the thing that I did think about this class. I was like, that's just, I mean, first of all, I think it's like honest, it's like nonfiction, so it's like very real. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I should have, I've never been in a theater class, so I was like, what you're saying?
What do I do with this? Yeah, right. Yeah. Like I think there's two different ways. Hard pull and then to walk is like
For like, people.
I think that nonfiction class which is not like a bad thing, but it's like someone that we don't know, but everyone in fiction. Like even right now in gossip, of course, just one of the years. Yeah, we've seen Forrest. Yeah, I think he's great. He's so funny. So okay, thank you for chatting with me. Yes, I think I am. Is that cool?
Hi everybody, we're going to get started again in about a minute if you want to come back and join us.
I thought he was about to come back.
Okay.
Thank you. Wow, that was so prompt. Such better listeners than students. Right back. Thank you. So we are going to start the second half. We have two more readers tonight. Our first reader is Paula. And Paula Molina Acosta is a queer Colombian American writer from the Maryland side of the DMV. Her speculative fiction chapbook, When We're Done Here, won the 2020 Outright Chapbook Competition in Fiction, judged by River Solomon, and was published by Neon Hemlock Press. Paula has been published in Honey Literary, Stylus, Metro Weekly, and the celebrating 10 years of Outright Anniversary Journal. She is pursuing an MFA from the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. Let's welcome Paula.
Hello, everyone. Okay, you guys all look so friendly. I'm chilling again. I'm fine. I'm normal. The DMV is DC, Maryland, Virginia, in case you don't know. It's where I'm from. And you guys are gonna see a little bit of it in this, which is why I bring it up and talk about it all the time. I was trying to find something to read that people who don't know me, you may not know anything that I've ever written, but people who do know me have seen like the same 3 things like over and over again. So I was like, I'm gonna bring something new. So this is in the spirit of being in progress work. It is in progress. I was rewriting a older like novella that I had, and so this is written in kind of like fragments. And so it's a longer piece that I've kind of cut down, stapled different pieces together to put together something that's could be fun. So this is excerpts from a longer piece called Ida on the Water After Andrea. When the snows began to melt and seep into the ground, turning the land to mud in which we slipped and slid all the way down to the water. When at last it grew warm enough that our parents and aunts and uncles could bear to step outside and join us in the biting air. When at last it was time to begin preparations for the next season of either planting or sailing, Monica announced that she was pregnant. We're thinking Andrea or Andrew, she said. She picked names of our mothers and fathers, people in our little village. Maybe we're still deciding, or Adriana for a girl, or Adrian for a boy. Oh, stop, gushed Ida's mother. Her husband stood proudly behind her, a hand on her shoulder as she beamed. Of course, I'll still sail, he announced to the other men of the village when they started gathering to clap him on the back. With any luck, the baby will come before we set out, but you all will need another hand. You should stay if you want, insisted Ida's mother. We'll all be going, you should stay here. No, I couldn't. You'll need an extra hand. You're bringing all the girls along, it's their first time. You'll need someone who really knows what they're doing. Behind him, Bea's mother rolled her eyes. If there isn't a bigger idiot on the planet, she told Bea later. Más perezoso no hay, said Valeria's mother. He'll be out of her hair at least, said Ida's mother. That's the last thing she needs is him standing over her worrying, even if we have to babysit him for the next 3 months. I forgot to mention at the top, but this is told in like a first person plural, so there's a we. And the we describes the 3 girls that you're going to meet. They're Bea, Valeria, and Ida, who's the titular character. The flotilla left in the first warm days of spring, when fish were bursting into fleshy fullness, just as we were. Monica waved us off from the dock. She kissed her husband goodbye. We retched. Little Veronica pounded her fist into our stomach and kicked our shins for leaving her. She was still too young to sail. We lay on our stomachs and plunged our arms shoulder deep into the lagoon, and as we passed the barrier islands, we clutched at handfuls of sand and relished the stretch of our tendons in the cool water. For beyond the islands were all kinds of monsters unknown. Striped bass migrated north like birds or butterflies, and we meandered after. The flotilla sailed as one great creature gliding across the sea. Bea's mother sailed the lead boat, the tiny single-sailed vessel that flew scouting ahead of the pack. Each night we crowded Bea and pounded her for information. What did the waves untouched look like? Unbended by boats' wakes, like snow yet undisturbed. What lay ahead of us and what was to come, and what ought we be holding our breath to see if ever Bea's mother died, and it fell to one of our mothers to take her place? We longed for such an adventure, and the not-so-private wish was visible in the corners of our mouths as we pressed her for information. Bea refused to answer. For her part, Valeria claimed the flotilla's single radio, which was almost never used. Fuel was scarce, nearly impossible to get a hold of, and only the largest center boat was equipped with a tank to hold it. The boat's motor had even been removed to lighten the load of the boat and make room for storage. The dingy mechanism was switched on once a night, its static creeping into Valeria's ear and giving her dreams of spirits speaking to us through the radio waves. Ida, sailing alone with her mother at the back of the pack, owned very little, but her full-throated obsession with the sea could not be negotiated. At every lunchtime while her mother cooked, and in the evenings as she waited for every boat to be tied down before hers, and in the early mornings as she climbed out of her slumber before the rest of us and had a crisp dawn to herself and the drifting plastics below. At every moment she could be found bobbing in the waves. Her skin was perpetually wrinkled, her eyes ringed with red circles from her goggles. She often bore mysterious cuts and scrapes whose sources we could only guess at. Perhaps she bumped her head against the bottom of her boat. Perhaps she got too friendly with a shark. We sailed northward, carried by currents and chasing the migrating fish. By the time we reached the first market, we were laden with striped bass, flounder, bluefish. New fish were blossoming in heavy, shimmering schools, visible even from the decks of our boats. They raced us, far below the waves and further offshore into the unknown infinite ocean. Instead, we turned coastwards. The market seemed to float on the water, latched only loosely to the shore. Bea in the lead boat saw it first. She told us later how it seems to appear like a ghost city on the water, with all of the ramshackle charm of the underwater ruins we had seen on our journey northward, with tumbling brick walls consumed by algae and waterweed. Scales speckled our hair and salt crackled in our skin. As we tied boats to docks and leapt onto something of solid ground, we stumbled and tripped. We were more fish than girls, we feared. Bea vomited one last time off the side of the dock, and we laughed at her. At the flecks of fish stew dribbling down her chin. The market was a maze of spindly docks stretched out into the shallows, forking at every opportunity to cram a few dozen boats together. Moored to docks and bobbing in the waves, each boat had rigged their sails up into canopies, shading their goods. Buckets and barrels lined the assembly, heaps of foreign and brightly colored fruits, cans and bottles of preserves, dried meat and skins hanging like curtains. A flurry of smells had drifted out on the water to meet us. In the wind, we had recognized the scent of cooking meat, of onions and peppers, and the sweet citrusy smell of oranges, all threaded through with new spices, lit incense, and the always familiar taste of salt water. People, more people than we had ever seen, chattered and haggled, cooked over open fires, laughed loudly. Their footsteps rattled the docks, and their voices overlapped and crashed against each other, like the open ocean waves. At each boat turned stall, people stared at us. We walked closer to each other, and Valeria put her hand in Ida's for comfort. Bea strode at the front, adding a perilous sway to her hips that made each step clunk, clunk, clunk against the dock, announcing our presence. In this way, we marched through the market, throwing questions and demands at anyone who would hear us. Andrea, we called. Excuse me, do you know Andrea? She's that tall. Valeria stretched her hand high. She's our friend. We're from the south. We're fishermen. We're looking for our friend Andrea. Have you seen her? She would have come this way last year, about this time. We heard she got married and settled down somewhere. Have you seen her? Her name is Andrea? Where are you from, little ladies? Asked a vendor with a broad hat and a stall full of crabs. Pamlico, said Valeria. Pamlico, said Ida. Ida corrected, shoving her. The sound, Pamlico sound. The vendor raised his eyebrows. Far from home, then. I don't know if I've seen y'all around here before, have I? It's our first season sailing, Bea chirped. Shut up, Ida hissed in her ear. Valeria interjected, do you live here? Yep, born and raised, outlasted the storm even. Listen, if I'd never been north before in my life, I wouldn't even know what I was missing, so I'll do you a favor and let you in on some critical coast living insight. These crabs right here, these crabs, they're like nectar of the gods. Nectar, Valeria murmured. We've eaten crab before, Ida said. You've never had a crab like a Chesapeake blue crab, I promise you. Fresh, caught, still wriggling a little, keep that blood flowing. He held up a crustacean with its claws tied together, its legs scrambling for purchase. We could imagine cracking its meaty limbs open and sinking our teeth into the white flesh. Let me tell you, there's nothing like this. And since y'all are first-time customers, and so cute besides, I'll give you a deal. Y'all are fisher girls, right? Your people fish? We nodded. Give me a pound of salted fish for 2 crabs, or 2 pounds for 3. Now, ordinarily, one of these babies shook the crab, so it rattled. Valeria squeaked. A pound each, sometimes 2. But for such sweet ladies like yourselves. Have you seen our friend Andrea? Demanded Ida. We're looking for her. She is 17. She's got skin like mine and hair long like hers, and she's about as tall as her. A little taller. Have you seen her? She would have come through last year. She got married. Sorry, the vendor said. I haven't seen her. We bought the crabs, and that evening we comforted ourselves with their slow, boiling deaths. We ate their delicious flesh and tossed the remains, fleshy organs and bone-like shells, into the great bay they had come from. From here, our mother said we would move inward into the so-called Chesapeake to more markets. If we really wanted to find her, Andrea would be there. Of course we want to find her, we exclaimed. What are you saying? Deeper and deeper into the bay we went. The water changed daily, and new species of fish appeared. Here's where I'm from the Chesapeake Bay. That's where Maryland is. A dozen flourishing varieties of water weeds. A hook-jawed turtle that Monica's husband identified as snapping. Crabs in every size. Even further in a deep patch where water tasted nearly fresh, someone spotted a bull shark before it dove for cover, and Ida's mother hauled her, yelping, out of the water. We were in a twisted version of our usual world. The dry, solid land resembled home nearly exactly, but the collision of fresh and salt water was nauseating. The same types of trees sprouted past the sandbanks, though occasionally interspersed with kinds we only recognized from freshwater sources. Reeds poked up in shallows, reeds that belonged to our memories of rivers. Everything was out of order and the water tasted different besides. There was little reason to dive in such a place, and over the next few days Ida dried out like a fish in a smokehouse. The ocean and its infinite liberties had been stolen away from her. Even in the nights, when all darkness ought to be the same, there was a distinct smell to the bay that belonged to nowhere else we had ever been. At last we had spotted Andrea by accident after landing at the next market, pinned to the protrusion of an island. It was a small place, nearly nameless. We had begun our stomping, our chants. Andrea, Andrea, have you seen Andrea? And then we had turned, and there she was. Andrea surprised us with the limits of her frame. In her absence, we had scaled her to the size of a giant. She had known us immediately. You've grown so much, she laughed. Our brief time apart stretched to decades in her tone. She had left home, gotten married, grown her hair out, all in a year. We began to panic.
How are you? It's so good to see you. How your first sailing season? You all look like you've had quite the adventure. Come on, what do we miss? We wasted no time. We miss you horribly, awfully, terribly, and you absolutely must come back with us. You left us without saying goodbye. Our mothers had to tell us that you got married. We can't, sorry for making, our mothers had to tell us that you got married. Without you, we are tumbling headfirst into womanhood at an alarming rate. We miss your smile and we came all this way to find you. Monica is having a baby, so in that way she is leaving us too. You absolutely must come home, you see, you absolutely must. One at a time, Andrea insisted, her mouth open half in chuckle and half in wonder. Monica's pregnant? She's due to pop any day now, Bea said. Wow, Andrea said. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Paula, not only for your wonderful writing, but your wonderful performance. Yes, that was lovely. And our last reader tonight is Kay Ho. Kay Ho is a writer and photographer from Vancouver, British Columbia, unceded Coast Salish territories. Their work has appeared in the Canadian National Arts Centre, The Margins by the Asian American Writers Workshop, Resonance, Essays on the Craft and Life of Writing, and elsewhere. They are a 2018 Bona Fellow, a 2023 Tin House Fellow, and an MFA candidate in creative writing at the University of Minnesota, where they are working on a novel. Please welcome Kay.
Hello. How's this for microphone? Okay, excellent. I just ate a granola bar and it was like very gooey. So I'm gonna keep this close by. Maybe here. Okay, so I, as most of you know, I'm in third year, and to graduate from the MFA, you have to write a thesis and complete a manuscript, either a memoir or a novel or a book of poems or a book of essays. And because I am very talented at the art of procrastination, I have instead spent my final semester writing and rewriting introductions and scrapping them all. So this is the newest version, and I will just begin. There was no Chinatown in Dawes, Alberta. My father liked it better that way. The closest Chinatown was in Edmonton, 2 hours east of us, a straight shot through switchgrass and muskeg down Highway 16. People said Dawes was a town, but it was more like a glorified truck stop. 3,500 residents, a park with a chain link court, a high school, a shitty library, 3 liquor stores rotating Coors and Molson, and the lowest gas prices in all of Canada. It was the kind of place where people noticed if you weren't from around, but no one did anything about it. Downtown was 2 traffic lights and a strip of motels trying to out-cheap each other. Econo Lodge and Parquet Plus, Super 8, and Best Value Inn. Everyone who touched Dawes was trying to get someplace else. It lay exactly 11 hours inland from the Pacific, provided you survived the Rockies in between. The mountains rose huge and craggy between us and the coast, and people either hated or chased them. Either way, money came in. RV families straining for Jasper, native girls headed to the ocean, hollow-eyed white guys with scraggly beards and secret trust funds scratching out a reason to live. And truckers. They steered through dust clouds and time zones and landed on us. They appeared at all hours of the day and often past midnight, handling tankers and auto haulers and flatbeds and freights. The westbounders stopped to rest before grinding up the Rockies. The eastbounders maxed out their daily quota grinding down. Everything in Dawes was built around trucking. The post office, the coin showers behind the Chevron, the Sunrise Diner selling pancakes over the counter and cocaine underneath, and us. We lived at the far end of the downtown strip, in a 2-bedroom above the restaurant, right where the town ended and the highway began. At night, my brother Nick and I could hear the trucks turning and roaring up the on-ramp, rattling our windows and disappearing into the stream of things streaking to better places. After Ba left the university, our parents bought the restaurant from an Asian couple who served chips and burgers just like Sunrise. Soon, though, Ma and Ba figured that the truckers wanted novelty and had money to spend. So they changed the menu: kung pao chicken, sesame beef, sweet and sour pork, and slapped red silk over the entrance and the chinkiest name they could think of: Gold Dynasty. Ma and Ba were ESL, but they understood what it meant to make a product and sell it. Gold Dynasty was what Nick and I knew. We were born upstairs in the bathtub, early at 38 weeks. As the story goes, Ma was folding napkins at the corner booth when her water broke. She yelled for Ba and staggered up to the bathroom, the contractions quick and surging. By the time Ba raced in, Nick was already crowning, his skull thrusting out her vagina, then his torso and legs, his hair matted, skin bluish, covered in strings of crimson and dark purple blood. I was sitting there and felt the pressure inside me, Ma liked to tell us, reaching for Nick and cradling the back of his neck. I thought I just needed to shit, but I gave you a push and out you rushed like you had somewhere to go. And you, Ma would say to me, you took so long, hanging back like a girl, so scared to greet us. I had gone sideways, shifted positions during the labor, and turned into the space where my brother's body had been. This is where the story goes hazy to me. At some point, while Ba was holding Nick, and the second wave of contractions shot through Ma, a midwife stopped to fuel up at the Esso across the street, and caught Ma's wails through the open window. I never understood this detail. The midwife hurried into the restaurant, crashed upstairs, and pressed her hands against Ma's belly, rotated the shape of me until I came out 2 hours later. Somehow, I never asked about the midwife. At the time, I wasn't interested in the details of the story beyond my brother and me. But how had she known to find the door to the stairs? How had she heard Ma over the crush of the highway? How had she deciphered the cries of a woman bringing a new thing into the world? What I remember of my childhood. Ba presided over the kitchen and managed deliveries from the office in the back hall. Ma served and cleared the tables. The truckers lurched in on their come down from coke or speed or both, chemical stain in their sinuses, and stood wavering in the entrance like little boys trying to stay up past their bedtime. Ma took them one by the elbow and escorted them to their tables, the ones along the wall that were nailed to the floor. As children, Nick and I would fill the cups at the sink, then walk over holding the tray between us, Nick fidgeting and struggling to keep the cups still. I'd set the tray down and he'd distribute them. When we were done, Nick would stick around and pepper the men with questions about their cargo, and eventually he'd report back to me. People forget that most truckers have families. My brother reminded them of their sons. From the kitchen, I'd watch Nick hold his private conversations. If a trucker carried cement or animal feed or crude oil or grain, he'd yell, "Boring, what's new?" And the man would stop, lean back in his seat, then break into laughter. But sometimes good ones came by. We remembered them all. Once a truck brought in 90 tanks of tropical fish. Another hauled compression socks and cigarettes. 40,000 pounds of chicken breast. 36 love seats stacked like bricks. We memorized the numbers as if they somehow carried meaning. Once Nick came back to me with a look in his eye and said, "Radioactive milk." Another time he whispered, 70 human hands, in a country accent I didn't know he could mimic. I believed him because I didn't know I didn't have to. He was my twin, my older brother. Why would he have any reason to lie? Me, I wondered about the drivers. I wondered if they fell asleep at the wheel, if they listened to the radio cut in and out between the provinces, if they had daughters, if they cut snowflakes in December. All I saw were men with locked jaws and shoulders hunched to their ears. They forgot their caffeine pills on the bathroom counter. They slept in their cabs and took in girls who haunted the parking lot of the Petro. They pissed in plastic jugs and tossed them out the window. The restaurant boomed as we got older, enough so that Nick and I didn't have to work once we hit high school. Ba was glad Dawes didn't have a Chinatown because it meant we didn't have competition. But it also meant we were the only of our kind. Family was all we had. I got used to people crisscrossing in and out while we stayed. Everything in Dawes was built around the tide of leaving. You'd stop here, sleep a night, and go on remembering nothing about us. I grew so obedient to it, watching people leave, that I never realized it was something I could do myself. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm not going to put Isabel on the spot again about what day the next one is because I'm just going to find it on my phone.
That's exactly what I would
yep,
do. if you put
I
me on the
found
spot.
it. So our next and last date for this semester is on Sunday, April 21st at the same time. We will have a whole new set of readers. And again, I just really want to say thank you to everyone for coming out and supporting us in our program. And thank you to Majors and Quinn for helping us host this. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you in April.